Mindset Shift Audiobooks. Business is not your problem. Permission is. A book for women who know what to do, but were taught not to do it for themselves. Welcome to Mindset Shift Audiobooks, a place for becoming. Here you'll find the structure to build more abundance, more success, more life lived on your terms. If this resonates, subscribe for daily content. Let's begin. Introduction. You were never the problem. You've been told you lack confidence, that you need to believe in yourself more, that if you just pushed harder, showed up more consistently, or learned one more skill, everything would click into place. But that's not true. You don't lack confidence, you lack permission. And the reason you lack permission is because you were never given it. Not by your parents, not by your teachers, not by your employers, and certainly not by the culture that raised you to be pleasant, accommodating, and self-sacrificing above all else. You were taught that ambition was selfish, that wanting more was greedy, that claiming space meant taking it from someone else. And so you learned to wait, to defer, to make yourself smaller so others could be bigger. You became excellent at supporting other people's dreams. You funded them emotionally and financially. You cheered them on. You held things together while they took risks. And you told yourself that your turn would come later. But later never came, because the truth is, no one was ever going to give you permission. Not your partner, not your boss, not your family, and not the universe. Permission doesn't arrive. It's not bestowed, it's claimed. And claiming it feels impossible when you've spent your entire life being rewarded for not doing so. This book is not about confidence. It's not about mindset. It's not about hustling harder or believing in yourself more. It's about understanding why you stopped yourself in the first place and why business strategy alone will never work until you reclaim the authority you were taught to give away. This is not a business book with a mindset chapter tacked on. This is not a self-help book with a few business tips at the end. This is the integration of both, because you cannot separate identity from strategy. Every business decision you make is filtered through the beliefs you carry about who you're allowed to be. And if you believe you're not allowed to claim space, charge fully, or own your ideas, then no amount of strategy will save you. So let's start with the truth. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not unqualified. You were just taught to wait for permission that was never coming. And now you're taking it back. Part 1. Why you stopped yourself. Chapter 1. You were trained to wait. You learned to wait before you even knew you were learning. When you were a little girl, you were rewarded for patience, for sitting still, for waiting your turn, for not interrupting, for being good. Boys were allowed to be loud. They were allowed to take up space, demand attention, and interrupt adults mid-sentence. And when they did, it was called leadership, confidence, natural boyish energy. But when you did the same, you were corrected. You were told to wait, to be polite, to let others go first. And if you persisted, you weren't seen as confident. You were seen as pushy, aggressive, unlikable. So you learned. You learned that claiming space had social consequences, that ambition made people uncomfortable, that wanting more meant you were greedy, selfish, or ungrateful for what you already had. And this lesson didn't go away as you got older. It deepened. In school, you were praised for being diligent, conscientious, and cooperative. You were rewarded for following the rules, not for breaking them. You were taught that success came from doing what you were told, not from questioning authority or creating your own path. Boys who broke the rules were called disruptors, innovators, entrepreneurs in training. Girls who broke the rules were called difficult, and so you didn't break them. You worked hard. You got good grades. You went to university, or you didn't. But either way, you built a life based on doing things the right way, the acceptable way, the way that kept you safe from judgment. And then you entered the workforce, and the waiting continued. You waited for promotions that went to less qualified men. You waited for recognition that never came. You waited to be invited into rooms you were already qualified to be in. You waited for someone to notice your competence, your work ethic, your value. And when you weren't promoted, you didn't demand it. You assumed you weren't ready yet. That if you just worked harder, stayed longer, proved yourself more thoroughly, eventually someone would see you. But they didn't, because the game was never about readiness. It was about who felt entitled to claim the space without waiting for permission. And you were taught that entitlement was a flaw, not a skill. So here's the truth. Waiting is not neutral. Waiting is not patience. It's not virtue. It's not wisdom. Waiting is a strategic delay with a financial cost. Every year you wait to start your business, you lose potential revenue. Every month you wait to raise your prices, you undervalue your expertise. Every week you wait to claim your position in the market, someone else does. And the longer you wait, the more you convince yourself that you're not ready, that you need more experience, more credentials, more certainty. But readiness is a moving target. There is no moment when you will suddenly feel ready, no divine tap on the shoulder, no external sign that says, now is your time, because your time is not given, it's taken. And taking it requires unlearning everything you were taught about waiting your turn. This is not about becoming reckless. It's not about ignoring preparation or acting without thought. It's about recognizing that waiting for permission is not the same as being strategic. Men move with 70% certainty. Women wait for 90%. And that 20% difference costs you years. So the question is not, am I ready? The question is, what am I waiting for? Because if the answer is permission, you'll be waiting forever. Chapter 2. Why you funded other people's dreams. You've spent your life making other people's dreams possible. Not because you were asked to, not because you had nothing else to do, but because you were raised to believe that support was your highest contribution. You held things together while your partner took risks. You worked full time while he built his business. You managed the household, the children, the logistics, the emotional labor, so he could focus on his ambitions. And you told yourself it was temporary, that once his business took off, once things stabilized, once the kids were older, it would be your turn. But your turn never came, because the structure you built to support his dream became permanent. The roles you took on became your identity, and asking to shift them felt like dismantling the entire foundation of your life. So you didn't ask. You stayed in the support role. You kept working the job that paid the bills while his career became the priority. You deferred your own ambitions, not because you didn't have them, but because there was no space left for them. And when you finally mentioned wanting to start something of your own, you were met with concern, with questions about timing, feasibility, risk, with suggestions to wait until things were more stable, until there was more time, until it made more sense, as if his dreams had ever waited for perfect timing. This is not about blame. This is not about shaming men or painting yourself as a victim. This is about recognizing a pattern. Women are socialized to stabilize, to hold, to support, and that labor is invisible, unpaid, and never factored into the equation when decisions about time, money, and risk are made. You didn't choose to fund his dreams instead of yours. You were taught that his dreams mattered more, that his income was essential, that his ambitions were legitimate, and yours were hobbies. And even if he never said that out loud, the structure of your life said it for him. You worked full-time and managed the home. He worked full-time and had free evenings. You coordinated schedules, remembered birthdays, managed relationships with in-laws, planned holidays, and made sure everyone was fed, clean, and emotionally regulated. He had discretionary time. You had tasks, and when you wanted to start a business, you had to carve it out of the margins, out of stolen hours after everyone else was asleep, out of weekends that were supposed to be rest, out of mental energy that was already depleted. And still, you tried. You started small. You told yourself that if you could just prove it could work, if you could show that it was viable, then maybe it would be taken seriously. But small never becomes big when there's no room for it to grow, because growth requires space, time, energy, investment, and all of those resources were already allocated elsewhere. This is the cost of being the stabilizer. You don't get to take risks. You don't get to experiment. You don't get to fail and try again, because your role is to make sure everything else stays intact. And so your business becomes something you do in the cracks, something you apologize for, something you downplay so it doesn't threaten the stability you've been maintaining for everyone else. But here's the truth. Every business decision is a resource allocation decision. Time, money, and energy are finite, and every hour you spend stabilizing someone else's life is an hour you don't spend building your own. This is not about being selfish. It's about being honest. If you want to build something that matters, you cannot do it in the margins. You cannot do it with the scraps of time and energy left over after everyone else has been taken care of. You need space, and claiming space means renegotiating the roles you've been playing. It means saying no. It means delegating. It means letting things fall apart that were never yours to hold in the first place. And it means accepting that when you stop stabilizing, people will be uncomfortable. They will tell you it's not the right time, that you're being impractical, that you're putting yourself first in a way that feels unfamiliar and threatening. But their discomfort is not your responsibility. You've spent your life funding other people's dreams, and it's not selfish to finally fund your own. Chapter 3. Competent but unsure. You are more than qualified. You have experience. You have skills. You have knowledge that people would pay for. You've solved complex problems, managed difficult situations, and delivered results in environments that would have broken less capable people. And yet, you don't feel ready. You look at what you've built, what you've accomplished, and instead of seeing competence, you see gaps, things you haven't done yet, skills you haven't mastered, credentials you don't have. You see men with half your experience confidently selling services you could deliver better. You see people who started after you, who know less than you, who have already built successful businesses, and you wonder what they have that you don't. The answer is not competence, it's certainty. They believe they're qualified, so they act as if they are, and the market believes them. You doubt you're qualified, so you wait for more proof. And the market never sees you. This is not imposter syndrome. It's not a flaw in your psychology. It's the predictable result of a lifetime of being told that your competence is never quite enough. Women are held to higher standards and given less credit. You've experienced this your entire life. You've watched men get promoted for potential while you were told to wait for proof of performance. You've seen men confidently claim expertise in areas where they're barely competent, while you downplay your own, and you've internalized the lesson. Confidence without competence is arrogance. So you've waited to feel completely certain before claiming any authority at all. But certainty is not a prerequisite for action. It's a byproduct of it. Men don't wait to feel confident before they start. They start, and confidence builds as they go. They stumble, adjust, and keep moving. And because they're not paralyzed by the need for certainty, they move faster. This is not about lowering your standards. It's about recognizing that waiting for perfect certainty is a trap. You will never feel completely ready. There will always be something you haven't done, something you don't know, something you think you should master before you begin. But mastery doesn't come before action. It comes through it. Every expert you admire started before they were qualified. Every business you respect was built by someone who figured it out as they went. Every person who has achieved what you want to achieve did so without certainty, and they weren't better than you. They just started. So why haven't you? Because competence without confidence feels like fraud. And you've been taught that claiming authority before you're certain is dishonest. But here's the truth. Readiness is subjective. The person who decides whether you're qualified is not some objective external authority. It's the market. And the market doesn't care about your credentials. It cares about whether you can solve a problem. If you can, you're qualified. If you can deliver value, create clarity, or provide a solution, you're ready. And waiting for someone else to confirm that is not strategic. It's self-sabotage. This doesn't mean you ignore skill development. It doesn't mean you skip preparation. It means you stop waiting for perfect certainty before you begin. You start with what you have. You learn as you go. You adjust based on feedback, and you trust that competence is enough. Because it is. You don't need to be the best. You just need to be clear, consistent, and capable. And you already are. The only thing standing between you and the business you want to build is the belief that you're not allowed to start until you're certain. But certainty is not the price of entry. Action is. And the moment you act, you stop being someone who's waiting to be ready. You become someone who's building. Chapter 4. Choosing yourself is not selfish. You've been taught that self-sacrifice is noble, that putting others first is the mark of a good woman, a good partner, a good mother, that prioritizing your own needs is selfish, indulgent, or immature. And so you've built a life around making sure everyone else is taken care of before you even consider what you need. You've delayed your own ambitions so your partner could pursue his. You've stayed in jobs you hated because they provided stability for your family. You've put off starting your business because the timing was never right for everyone else. And you've told yourself that this is love, that this is responsibility, that this is what it means to be a good person. But self-sacrifice doesn't scale. You can give everything for a season. But when that season becomes years, decades, a lifetime, you don't just lose your ambitions, you lose yourself. And the people you sacrificed for don't benefit from your depletion. They inherit a version of you that's exhausted, resentful, and diminished. This is not about becoming selfish. It's about recognizing that choosing yourself is not the opposite of caring for others. It's the foundation of being able to care for them sustainably. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You've heard that 1,000 times, but you've never truly believed it, because you've been taught that emptying yourself is proof of love, that if you're not depleted, you haven't given enough. But depletion is not a virtue. It's a failure of boundaries. When you prioritize everyone else's needs above your own, you're not being generous. You're teaching people that your needs don't matter, and they learn that lesson. Your partner learns that his career takes priority. Your children learn that your ambitions are optional. Your employer learns that you'll accept less because you won't advocate for more. And you learn that your value is measured by how much you give up. But that's not true. Your value is not determined by your willingness to sacrifice. It's determined by what you build, what you create, what you contribute when you're operating from a place of wholeness, not depletion. And wholeness requires self-prioritization, not selfishness, self-prioritization. There's a difference. Selfishness is taking without regard for others. Self-prioritization is ensuring that your needs are met so you can show up fully in your life. Selfishness is demanding that everyone else accommodate you. Self-prioritization is refusing to accommodate everyone else at your own expense. Selfishness is entitlement. Self-prioritization is survival. And if you want to build a business, you need to survive first. Because businesses don't run on leftover energy. They don't grow in the margins. They require time, focus, and sustained effort. And if you're still operating as if everyone else's needs come before yours, you will never have the space to build. This is where most business advice fails women. It tells you to set goals, create systems, and execute consistently. But it doesn't tell you how to do that when you're still the one managing the household, organizing the schedules, and absorbing everyone's emotional labor. It doesn't tell you how to build a business when your time is not your own. And so you try. You wake up early, you stay up late, you work through weekends, and you burn out because you're trying to add a business on top of a life that's already unsustainable. The solution is not better time management. It's boundaries. It's saying no to things that don't serve you. It's delegating tasks that were never yours to own. It's letting people experience the consequences of their own choices instead of cushioning every discomfort. And it's accepting that when you stop sacrificing yourself, people will be uncomfortable. They'll say you've changed, that you're not the same person, that you're being selfish, and they'll be right. You have changed. You're no longer available to deplete yourself for their comfort, and that's not selfish. That's self-preservation. Because here's the truth. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to give you permission to prioritize yourself. No one is going to create space for you. No one is going to protect your time, your energy, or your ambitions. That's your job, and if you don't do it, no one will. So choosing yourself is not selfish. It's the only choice that allows you to build something sustainable. And sustainability is not indulgence, it's strategy. Because businesses built on depletion fail, and lives built on self-sacrifice collapse. You were taught that sacrifice was noble, but what you weren't taught is that martyrdom doesn't build anything. It just burns you out, and you deserve more than that. Chapter 5. You are not late. You are early to the new rules you think you're behind. You look at people who started younger, who built businesses in their 20s, who achieved success before they had mortgages, children, or responsibilities. And you think you missed your window, but you didn't. Because the rules have changed. The old model of success was speed. Start young, scale fast, exit big. Burn out by 35 and retire on the wealth you accumulated before your body gave out. That model worked for a specific kind of person in a specific kind of economy, and it didn't work for most women, not because women aren't capable, but because women were managing responsibilities that made that kind of relentless focus impossible. You couldn't hustle 18-hour days when you were the one making sure everyone was fed. You couldn't take wild financial risks when you were the one maintaining stability. You couldn't pivot recklessly when you had dependents who relied on you. So you built slower, more carefully, with more constraints, and you told yourself you were behind. But you weren't behind. You were building with different parameters, and now those parameters are an advantage because the game has shifted. Speed is no longer the primary competitive advantage. Judgment is. The internet is saturated. Every market is crowded. Every niche has been claimed by someone younger, faster, louder. But most of those businesses won't last. Because speed without strategy creates noise, not value, and audiences are exhausted. They don't want more content, they want better thinking. They don't want louder voices, they want clearer ones. And clarity comes from experience. It comes from pattern recognition, from having seen enough situations to know what works and what doesn't. From having made enough mistakes to avoid repeating them. This is what you have. You've spent decades observing, analyzing, solving problems. You've navigated corporate politics. You've managed complex relationships. You've built systems, whether in your career, your home, or your life. And all of that is transferable. The skills that made you competent in your job are the same skills that will make your business successful. The judgment that helped you manage a household is the same judgment that will help you make strategic decisions. You're not starting from scratch. You're leveraging decades of experience. And that's not a disadvantage. It's leverage. The women who are building now, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, are building with a calmness that younger founders don't have. They're not chasing trends. They're not trying to prove themselves. They're not desperate for validation. They know who they are. They know what they're good at. They know what they're not willing to tolerate. And that clarity is magnetic. Because people are tired of performative confidence. They're tired of hustle culture. They're tired of businesses that promise transformation and deliver burnout. They want substance, and substance takes time to build. So no, you're not late. You're early to the new rules. The rules that reward depth over speed, strategy over noise, calm over chaos. The women who waited, who built slowly, who prioritized stability over recklessness, are the ones positioned to win now, because the market is shifting toward what you already know how to do. Build sustainably, think strategically, create value without burning out. And the only question left is, will you claim it? Chapter 6. Permission is a trap. You've been waiting for permission your entire life. Permission to speak up in meetings. Permission to apply for the promotion. Permission to charge what you're worth. Permission to start your business. And you've been waiting because you were taught that acting without permission is presumptuous, arrogant, or rude. So you waited for someone to invite you, to recognize you, to tell you that you were ready, qualified, deserving. But permission never came, because permission is not given, it's assumed. The people who succeed are not the ones who wait to be invited. They're the ones who walk into the room as if they already belong there. And you've been taught that this is arrogance, but it's not. It's ownership. Ownership is not arrogance. It's clarity. It's knowing what you're capable of and acting accordingly. It's trusting your judgment enough to move without external validation. It's refusing to wait for someone else to decide whether you're allowed. And this is where women get stuck, because you've been socialized to defer, to wait your turn, to seek consensus before acting. And in collaborative environments, that's a strength. But in business, it's a liability, because business rewards decisiveness, not deference. It rewards people who claim authority, not people who wait to be given it. And if you're waiting for permission, you're not playing the same game as your competitors. Men don't wait for permission. They assume it. They pitch themselves for opportunities they're not qualified for. They raise prices before they've proven value. They position themselves as experts before they've built a track record. And they get away with it. Not because they're better, but because they act as if they're allowed. And the market believes them. This is not about faking competence. It's about recognizing that confidence is not a prerequisite. It's a performance. And the performance is simple. Act as if you're already qualified, and people will treat you as if you are. This feels dishonest to you, because you've been taught that confidence should be earned, not claimed. That you should feel certain before you act certain. But certainty is not a feeling, it's a decision. You decide you're qualified, and then you act accordingly. And if someone questions you, you don't collapse. You hold your ground, not because you're arrogant, but because you know what you're capable of. And you're no longer available to shrink so others feel comfortable. This is the shift, from waiting for permission to giving yourself permission, from seeking validation to trusting your own judgment, from deferring to deciding. And the moment you make that shift, everything changes, because you're no longer waiting for someone else to authorize your ambitions. You're authorizing them yourself. And that's not arrogance, that's ownership. Part 2. Business Simplified for Real Life. Chapter 7. Business is a game. Learn the rules. You were taught morality, not mechanics. You were taught that if you work hard, you'll be rewarded. That if you're good, kind, and fair, success will follow. That the right thing to do is also the smart thing to do. But business doesn't work that way. Business is not a moral system. It's a mechanical one. It operates on principles that have nothing to do with fairness, kindness, or effort. It rewards leverage, positioning, and clarity. And if you don't understand the mechanics, you'll keep working hard without getting results. This is why so many capable women struggle in business. Not because they're not smart enough, not because they're not working hard enough, but because they're playing by the wrong rules. They think business rewards effort. It doesn't. It rewards value capture. They think business rewards fairness. It doesn't. It rewards positioning. They think business rewards being nice. It doesn't. It rewards being clear. And until you understand that, you'll keep undercharging, over-delivering, and wondering why your business isn't growing. So let's talk about the actual rules. Rule 1. Revenue is not the same as popularity. You can have 1,000 followers and make nothing. You can have 100 followers and make 6 figures, because revenue doesn't come from attention. It comes from conversion. And conversion happens when you solve a specific problem for a specific person at a specific price point. Most women focus on being likable, on creating content that resonates, on building community, and all of that matters, but it doesn't generate revenue unless you have a clear offer that people can buy. You don't need more followers. You need a clearer position. Rule 2. Effort does not equal return. You've been taught that hard work is rewarded, and in employment, it often is. You work more hours, you get more predictable outcomes. But in business, effort is not correlated with results. You can spend 100 hours building a product that no one buys. You can spend 10 hours creating an offer that generates consistent revenue. The difference is not effort, it's leverage. Leverage is doing work once that pays you repeatedly. It's solving a problem that people will pay for. It's building systems that run without you. And most women don't build leverage. They build effort loops. They trade time for money. They over-deliver to prove their value. They work harder instead of smarter. And they burn out. Because effort without leverage is exhausting, and exhaustion is not a business model. Rule 3. Visibility is not the same as ownership. You've been told that to succeed, you need to be visible, to show up every day, to build a personal brand, to put yourself out there. And for some people, that's true. But visibility is not ownership. You can be the most visible person in your industry and still not own anything. You can have 1 million followers and still be broke. Because visibility without ownership is just performance. Ownership is building assets. It's creating intellectual property. It's capturing value that exists independently of your constant presence. And most women confuse the two. They think that if they just post more, show up more, engage more, the business will grow, but it won't. Because visibility doesn't build businesses. Systems do. And if you're spending all your time being visible, you're not building the infrastructure that actually generates revenue. So what does this mean practically? It means you stop optimizing for morality and start optimizing for mechanics. You stop asking, is this fair? And start asking, does this work? You stop trying to be likable and start being clear. You stop over-delivering to prove your value and start charging what the value is worth. And you stop confusing effort with strategy, because business is not a moral system, it's a game. And once you learn the rules, you can play it without losing yourself. Chapter 8. One clear position beats 10 good ideas. You have too many ideas. You see opportunities everywhere. You could help people with mindset, strategy, systems, branding, productivity, relationships, health, finances. You could create courses, workbooks, coaching programs, memberships, retreats, books, podcasts. You could serve corporate women, entrepreneurs, mothers, creatives, coaches, consultants. And because you're capable of all of it, you try to do all of it. You create 10 different offers for 10 different audiences and wonder why none of them sell. The problem is not your ideas, it's your positioning. Because the market doesn't reward variety, it rewards clarity. When someone lands on your website, reads your bio, or sees your content, they should know immediately who you help and how. Not 10 things you could help with, one thing you're known for. And this is where women struggle. Because narrowing feels like limiting yourself. It feels like leaving money on the table. It feels like saying no to people you could genuinely help. But diffusion is not generosity, it's confusion. And confusion does not convert. If you try to speak to everyone, you speak to no one. If you offer everything, nothing stands out. If you position yourself as a generalist, you compete with every other generalist in a race to the bottom on price. But if you claim one clear position, you become the obvious choice for a specific person with a specific problem. And that's when business gets easier. Not because you're working harder, but because you're no longer forcing people to figure out why they should hire you. So how do you choose? You don't choose what you're capable of. You choose what the market will pay for. You don't choose what excites you. You choose what solves a problem someone is actively trying to solve. You don't choose based on passion. You choose based on positioning. And positioning is simple. It's answering 3 questions. Who do you serve? What problem do you solve? Why are you the person to solve it? That's it. Not 10 problems. 1. Not every audience. 1. And the reason you resist this is because you think specificity limits you. But it doesn't. It liberates you. Because once you have a clear position, you stop wasting time creating content for people who will never buy. You stop diluting your message trying to appeal to everyone. You stop second-guessing every decision because you have a clear filter. Does this serve the position? Yes or no? If yes, do it. If no, don't. And suddenly, your business becomes simpler. You're not juggling 10 offers. You're refining one. You're not trying to be everything. You're becoming known for something. And being known is what generates revenue. Because people don't buy from generalists. They buy from specialists. They don't hire someone who does a bit of everything. They hire the person who solves their specific problem better than anyone else. And the only way to be that person is to claim one position and own it. Not forever, just for now. Because you can always expand later. But you can't expand from nothing. You have to build authority in one area before you can credibly move into another. And authority comes from repetition, from saying the same thing in different ways until people associate you with that idea, from solving the same problem for the same people until you're the first person they think of when they need help. That's positioning. And it's not limiting, it's strategic. Because one clear position beats 10 good ideas every time. Chapter 9. If it doesn't pay you, it owns you. You've been undercharging your entire life, not because you don't know your worth, but because charging fully feels uncomfortable. It feels greedy, presumptuous, like you're asking for more than you deserve. And so you charge less, you offer discounts, you throw in extras for free. You undervalue your time because you'd rather be liked than paid fairly. But undercharging is not generosity, it's self-sabotage. Because every time you undercharge, you're training people to undervalue you. You're signaling that your work is not worth full price, that your time is negotiable, that your expertise is optional. And once you set that precedent, it's nearly impossible to reverse. Because people don't just pay for the service, they pay for how you position it. If you present your work as cheap, they'll treat it as disposable. If you present it as premium, they'll treat it as valuable. And the difference is not the work, it's the price. This is not about overcharging. It's about charging what the value is worth, and value is not determined by how much time you spend. It's determined by the outcome you deliver. If you save someone 100 hours, your work is worth more than the 2 hours it took you to deliver it. If you solve a problem that's been costing them money, your fee should reflect the cost of the problem, not the cost of your time. But women don't think this way. They think about what feels fair, what feels reasonable, what feels like a price someone would actually pay. And they anchor to the lowest number that doesn't feel ridiculous. But pricing is not about what feels fair. It's about what captures value. And if you're solving expensive problems, your prices should reflect that. This is where most women get stuck. They know they should charge more, but they don't because they're afraid of losing clients. And they're right to be afraid, because when you raise your prices, some people will leave. But the people who leave were never your ideal clients. They were price-sensitive buyers who were never going to value your work. They were always going to negotiate, delay payment, and demand more than they paid for. And losing them is not a loss. It's a filter. Because the clients who pay premium prices are the ones who value the outcome, not the cost. They're the ones who implement, who respect your time, who refer others, and they're the ones your business should be built around. So how do you charge more without feeling like a fraud? You stop tying your prices to your time. You stop calculating hourly rates and start calculating outcome value. You stop asking, how much should I charge for this? And start asking, what is this worth to the person buying it? And you charge accordingly. This doesn't mean you gouge people. It means you stop undervaluing yourself. Because undercharging doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help your clients because they don't take the work seriously. It doesn't help your business because you can't scale on underpriced offers. And it doesn't help you because you're trading your time for less than it's worth. So here's the truth. If it doesn't pay you, it owns you. Every underpriced offer is a commitment you can't afford. Every free consultation is time you'll never get back. Every discount is a signal that your work is negotiable. And the longer you stay in that pattern, the harder it is to escape. Because once you've trained people to expect cheap, raising your prices feels like betrayal. But it's not. It's correction. And the only way to build a sustainable business is to charge what the work is worth. Not what you think people will pay, what it's worth. And if that feels uncomfortable, good, because discomfort is not a sign you're doing it wrong. It's a sign you're finally doing it right. Part 3. Building for the life you actually live. Chapter 10. Structure is feminine. You've been told that structure is rigid, masculine, corporate, a cage that limits creativity and freedom. And so you've resisted it. You've built your business around flexibility, around flow, around doing what feels right in the moment, and it worked for a while, until it didn't. Because businesses built on feeling collapse when you don't feel like working. They stall when life gets complicated. They fall apart when you're tired, overwhelmed, or dealing with something unexpected, and you told yourself that structure would solve this. That if you just had better systems, better discipline, better routines, everything would stabilize. But every time you tried to build structure, it felt suffocating. It felt like you were forcing yourself into someone else's template, like you were trying to become the kind of person who thrives on rigid schedules and relentless discipline. And you're not that person, so you gave up on structure, and you told yourself that your business just needed to be different, more intuitive, more aligned. But that's not true. The problem is not structure. It's the kind of structure you were trying to build. Because most business structure is designed by and for men. It's built around relentless focus, around single-minded ambition, around the ability to ignore everything else in service of the goal. And that doesn't work for most women, not because women aren't capable of focus, but because most women are managing multiple priorities simultaneously. You're not just building a business, you're managing a household, maintaining relationships, caring for aging parents or growing children, navigating your own health, energy, and emotional capacity. And masculine structure doesn't account for any of that. It assumes you have uninterrupted time, predictable energy, no competing responsibilities. And when you don't, it treats you as the problem. But you're not the problem. The structure is. Because structure doesn't have to be rigid. It can be responsive. It doesn't have to demand perfection. It can accommodate reality. And it doesn't have to force you into a box. It can create the conditions for you to thrive. That's feminine structure. It's not about doing the same thing every day at the same time. It's about creating systems that support you when life is unpredictable. It's not about grinding through exhaustion. It's about designing your business so it doesn't require constant heroic effort. It's not about forcing yourself to work when you have no capacity. It's about building leverage so your business can function without you being present every moment. This is what most women are missing. They think they need more discipline, more willpower, more consistency. But what they actually need is better structure. Structure that accommodates their life, not one that demands they sacrifice everything else to maintain it. So what does that look like practically? It looks like batching work instead of fragmenting your day. It looks like creating templates, frameworks, and systems that reduce decision fatigue. It looks like automating repetitive tasks so you're not manually doing the same thing over and over. It looks like building your business around your energy, not against it. If you have more capacity in the mornings, that's when you do deep work. If you're depleted by the end of the week, that's when you do admin, not strategy. If you need flexibility because your life is unpredictable, you build a business model that doesn't collapse when you're unavailable for a few days. This is not about lowering your standards. It's about raising your awareness, because the business advice you've been following was written by people who don't live your life. They don't account for the mental load you carry, the emotional labor you manage, the unpredictability of caring for others. And so their structure doesn't fit. But that doesn't mean you don't need structure. It means you need different structure. Structure that breathes, that flexes, that supports instead of constrains. And when you build that kind of structure, your business stops feeling like a constant battle. It stops requiring you to push through exhaustion. It stops demanding more than you have to give, and it starts working for you instead of against you. Because structure is not masculine, it's foundational. And the only question is, what kind of foundation are you building? One that forces you to conform, or one that supports you as you are? Chapter 11. Visibility without exposure. You've been told that to build a business, you need to be visible. That you need to show your face, share your story, put yourself out there. That people buy from people, and if they don't see you, they won't trust you. And so you tried. You posted photos of yourself. You shared personal stories. You went on video, even though it made you uncomfortable. And it worked sometimes, but it also cost you. It cost you privacy. It cost you energy. It cost you the ability to separate your work from your identity. Because when your business is built on your personal brand, you become the product. And that's exhausting. Every post becomes a performance. Every story becomes content. Every personal moment becomes a question of whether it's shareable. And you can't turn it off. Because if you stop showing up, your business stalls. If you take a break, your audience forgets you. If you're not constantly visible, you become irrelevant. And so you kept going, even when it felt unsustainable, until you realized that visibility is not the same as authority. You can be the most visible person in your industry and still not be respected. You can share every detail of your life and still not be trusted, because visibility without substance is just noise. And people are exhausted by noise. They don't want more personal stories. They don't want more vulnerability. They don't want to see your face every day. They want clarity. They want solutions. They want ideas that are bigger than you. And that's where faceless authority wins, because faceless businesses are not built on personality. They're built on ideas. They're not built on relatability. They're built on expertise. They're not built on constant visibility. They're built on consistent value, and that makes them more sustainable. Because when your business is not dependent on you showing up every day, it can grow without draining you. When your authority is built on the quality of your thinking, not the frequency of your posting, you have leverage. When your value is in the frameworks you create, not the stories you share, you own something that outlasts trends. This is not about hiding, it's about separation. It's about building a business that doesn't require you to expose yourself in order to succeed, and that's increasingly possible because the internet is shifting. People are tired of influencers. They're tired of curated authenticity. They're tired of personal brands that collapse the moment the person behind them burns out. They want substance, and substance doesn't require a face. It requires clear thinking, strategic frameworks, ideas that solve real problems. And if you can deliver that, you don't need to be visible. You just need to be valuable. So what does this look like practically? It looks like building your business around intellectual property, not personal presence. It looks like creating frameworks, methods, and systems that people can apply without needing access to you. It looks like positioning yourself as a thinker, not a personality. And it looks like designing your content so it works without you being in it. You can use AI avatars, voiceovers, or simply well-written text. You can create audiobooks, essays, or long-form content that speaks for itself. You can be known for your ideas without being known for your face. And that's not hiding, it's strategy, because the most powerful businesses are the ones that don't collapse when the founder takes a break. They're the ones built on systems, not charisma, on value, not visibility. And if you want to build something that lasts, that's what you need to create. Not a personal brand that demands constant feeding, but a body of work that stands on its own. Chapter 12. The second half is the point you've been told that you're running out of time, that if you haven't built your business by now, you've missed your window, that success belongs to the young, the fast, the early movers. And so you've carried this quiet panic, this sense that you're behind, that you should have started sooner, that the opportunity has already passed, but that's not true. The second half is not the decline, it's the point. Because the first half of your life was preparation, you were building skills, accumulating experience, learning how the world works. You were trying on identities, testing careers, navigating relationships, figuring out who you are and what you actually want. And all of that was necessary. Because you can't build something meaningful when you don't yet know what meaning looks like for you. You can't create with clarity when you're still figuring out what you believe. You can't own your authority when you're still seeking permission from others. And so the first half was not wasted. It was foundational. Every job you took taught you something. Every mistake you made clarified what you don't want. Every compromise you accepted showed you where your boundaries are. And now, you know what you're good at. You know what you're not willing to tolerate. You know what matters and what doesn't. And that clarity is the competitive advantage. Because the women building now in their 40s, 50s, 60s are not building from desperation. They're building from conviction. They're not chasing trends. They're creating based on decades of pattern recognition. They're not trying to prove themselves. They're applying what they already know. And that produces better work. Because experience creates perspective, and perspective creates value. The problems you can solve now are not the problems you could have solved at 25. The clarity you bring now is not the clarity you had 10 years ago, and the market rewards that. People don't want advice from someone who's theorizing. They want guidance from someone who's lived it. They don't want energy, they want wisdom. And wisdom takes time. So no, you're not too late, you're exactly on time. Because the world is shifting toward what you already have. Depth over speed, strategy over hustle, calm over chaos. And the women who waited, who built slowly, who refused to sacrifice themselves for short-term wins, are the ones positioned to lead now. Not because they're louder, but because they're clearer. Not because they're younger, but because they're wiser. And the only question left is, will you build? Because the opportunity is not behind you, it's in front of you. And the second half is not the end, it's the beginning. Epilogue. You don't need to be braver, you need to begin. You've been waiting for the right moment, for certainty, for clarity, for courage. You've been waiting to feel ready, to feel confident, to feel like you finally have permission. But that moment is not coming, because readiness is not a feeling, it's a decision. And the decision is simple. Begin, not perfectly, not with complete certainty, not with every answer. Just begin. Because the business you want to build will not appear fully formed. It will emerge as you create it. The clarity you're waiting for will not arrive before you start. It will develop as you move. The confidence you think you need will not precede action. It will follow it. And so the only thing standing between you and the business you want is the belief that you need to wait. But you don't. You don't need more knowledge. You don't need more credentials. You don't need more time. You just need to decide that waiting is over. Because every day you wait, you're choosing someone else's timeline over your own. Every month you delay, you're prioritizing comfort over growth. Every year you postpone, you're reinforcing the belief that you're not allowed. But you are. You are allowed to start. You are allowed to claim space. You are allowed to charge fully, build strategically, and own your ideas. And you don't need permission. You just need to begin. Not because you're fearless, but because you're done waiting. Not because you're certain, but because certainty is not required. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. And the only question left is, what are you building? Because the world does not need more hesitation. It needs your clarity. It does not need more apologies. It needs your authority. It does not need you to wait. It needs you to begin. So begin. Not tomorrow. Not when you're ready. Not when it feels safe. Now. Because you are not behind. You are no longer available for delay, and the second half is waiting for you to claim it. Thank you for listening, and if this resonated, subscribe for more audiobooks on money, identity, and building a life that belongs to you. You can find them at moneyfamuse.com. Thank you for your support. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.